Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have this. Karen will set the ready.
Yeah.
Lisa, did you sign in?
Okay.
Here.
Okay.
Your name will be on.
Okay.
Your name will be on.
Sure.
You could just put it, yeah, just export it. Patty says she's on her way.
So we'll enjoy the meeting. Yes, we can do that.
I'll go.
So is there a delay? No, there's
Last week.
not, yeah, it's last
2 weeks.
That's pressure, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good.
Reset. I'd like to call a meeting to order, please. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. Right now, the items include 5A, the minutes, 7A, budget transfers, 7B, CSEA holiday calendar approval for 2018-19, 7E, donation acceptance, and 7H, special education. Are there any items that need to be removed? If not, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff. Is there a second?
Yes.
Thank you, Liam. All in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Wait, it's coming up. Like what?
Sometimes we do it both ways.
Yeah,
Right, I was trying to be fast.
Yeah.
sorry. All right, it's all,
Okay.
yeah, please vote.
Yeah.
Yea, nay, or abstain.
Technology.
And the motion carries 6-4-0 against with 1 absent. Right, next is for the good of the cause. This is a period of time that the school board sets aside to allow for public participation. Persons wishing to address the board should state their names and a brief description of the topic to be discussed and provide the same information on the sheet located by the meeting sign-in sheet. Please make your presentations brief, and it's suggested that speakers limit their comments to no longer than 5 minutes. Anybody like to speak at this time? Thank you.
This is my first board meeting, so excuse me if I'm not being super smooth. My name is Dave Corson, my wife Nikki. We are parents of Jacob, who is going to be a senior this year in Lake Placid High School, and Katie, who's going into the 8th grade. In addition to being parents, Nikki and I both drive school bus. We both work for the district. I've only been driving for 5 years. Nikki is starting her 16th year. The reason that we're here today is there was an unfortunate incident that some of you in the room have already heard the story, but I'm going to repeat it because I'd like it to go before the board, my concerns, our concerns. In light of the 2 weeks ago, the incident of threat of violence, I want to commend Roger and his staff of how they handle it. I come from a law enforcement background. I'm retired from the Lake Placid Police. Since I started, I came to work here right after I retired in 2014. So I have a unique opinion of school violence. I've been to active shooter training, so I'm probably more sensitive to this, more critical of any building or parking lot. And I just want to give you that, my perspective, so maybe you'll understand where I'm coming from. It was the best I've seen, and we haven't had that many threats, but this time, the police presence, just from the outside, as bus drivers, we see this building on a routine, and it's always easy to look from the outside and assume what's going on here, and maybe be critical of what's going on here. And Roger was good enough Friday when I was here to ask questions about come to the board meeting. You were good enough to sit with me and listen to my complaints or my frustration. Dana was actually my first point of contact after an unfortunate incident that happened last Tuesday, a week ago. So we had the threat of violence the week before. Couldn't have been more happy with the presence of security here. Tuesday, I leave the bus garage at 8:30 last Tuesday to go see Donna Moody. I had to drop a check off to her for Katie's softball jacket. I go to the gym door on School Street, walk right in the gym, not even thinking. Go to Donna's office door, nobody's there. I turn around and I suddenly realized 4 days after we had this building full of law enforcement, I walked into the building and nobody even noticed I was here. I turn around and I look at the gym and it's dead silent because the gym is full of students taking their Regents exams. So I guess I just had a moment where it dawned on me that how vulnerable everybody was at that exact moment. How, when any situation like this can be a soft target. So it scared the hell out of me. So I call Nikki, she calls Patty, Dana gets in touch with me. Dana was great, listened to my concerns, and I appreciate that. So at that point, you guys were both great at explaining maybe some obstacles that the district has with the building, with the doors. And I'm really just here tonight to express our concern as parents, but as bus drivers too, because there's nothing more of a soft target than a school bus. So we think about it all the time. It's really, really the reason, and I don't want to waste the board's time. I want you to know that this happened. I'm not accusing anybody, staff, anybody specifically of doing anything wrong. It scares me that the simplest thing of a door being open could lead to, as we all know, nationwide, the tragedies that are happening. So, this is, like I said, this is our first meeting. I want to be involved in any way we can. I know that I'm only seeing a piece of the pie here, and I know that it's easy, like I said, to come here and stomp on a table and say, lock the door. I know it's not that easy, but that's what I'm looking for.
And we appreciate you coming. You made the statement, you don't want to waste our time. Well, you're not wasting our time where student safety is concerned. We do have it on as a discussion item later in the board meeting. And we'll be addressing it. And we have taken steps to try to address it. It just takes time. And
I understand that.
With that gap in between is a vulnerable time. We need to cover it.
What I don't like to hear from staff in the last week, parents, is a negative attitude about this board.
Right.
I'm not saying a high percentage. I want to come here and I want to contribute.
And I appreciate, we appreciate that, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I would like to just say one more thing. Along the same lines of what the Corsons had said, I mean, they're friends of ours, and so I know his background as a police officer, and I appreciate his point of view, definitely. But as a parent, too, I have a son who's going in 10th grade and a daughter who's going into 8th grade already, and I had a conversation with my son a couple of years ago. Do you feel safe in school? He's like, no, I don't feel safe in school. It's like a silly question to kids nowadays because our country is different. And so there are steps that our school can take to make it a little safer so that the focus is on learning and not only safety in the building for some of the kids.
Thanks,
Thank
Lisa.
you. Anybody else? We will be discussing it in more detail later in the meeting, so we'll move on to our reports, but we will get to that topic soon. With that, we'll go to the future planning. Mr. Moore.
Can I stand up here, over here?
Sure.
Did everyone receive the document? I shared it with Karen on Friday. That was what I was doing, senior trip. You know, as the kids were sleeping in the hotel, I'm up in my usual 5 a.m. Doing schoolwork, and they didn't have to get up until 10 o'clock. So it was a good time to get some work done and not having to worry about any responsibilities. So I highlighted a few things because you can obviously read what I shared. It's up here in terms of the future planning. I've kind of broken it down by department areas, but at the same time, I didn't include some things because most likely it was covered. It was the common shared areas with the middle school, and Teresa was here 2 weeks ago. So I didn't include those because most likely you heard about them 2 weeks ago. So the one thing I really want to highlight, so I'll start off the art department in terms of future planning. We've been doing this for 5 years. Since I've been here, it's probably been longer. I can say, you know, honestly, since we've been doing this and I've been presenting, every year this list kind of changes because of, in a large part, the support of the board and the budget to be able to tackle a lot of things that's come up here from the staff. So if you were to look back over the 5 years, the documents, you would see one or two things that probably are still there. And I'll point that out because we've been talking about it for probably 5 years. But a lot of these things have kind of changed. The one area for the art department that I really want to highlight is this new class, sort of like a precursor. It's called Portfolio Projects. See there, it's basically the second bullet down. And that's really as a result of our high school art teacher, Mr. Robinson. And basically what he felt was that students that want to take that track and go into AP art class, really what they need is a class prior to it that really gets them ready for the rigor of the AP coursework. So he during the planning process, brought this up as an idea for next year. And he knew also that this coming year we probably weren't going to have any kids that were interested in AP art, so he thought it was a good time to roll it out, and we offered it up. We have 8 kids signed up for it, and the goal is to get them ready for the AP art because it's a very rigorous, you know, time-consuming, building a portfolio. So that was the one thing with the art department. They started a middle school art club a year ago. In-house gallery, you know, that was something that's been come up and something that we're trying to develop, as well as getting more community outreach and getting our art out. I think there's a nice job being done with the various art shows and exhibits during the springtime, but trying to display our student art even more so. And we've looked at areas within the building where we can kind of put up the artwork that can be displayed and then removed as the year goes on. One area that we have identified is in the library. So I don't know if you've noticed over the last couple of months, we've had cycling through arts projects from students in the library. For computer and technology, they're really the one thing you'll notice that the first 3 bullets really talk about the robotics. You know, we had our first robotics competition. Thankfully, on a large grant that the coaches were able to secure, and out of that came this desire to create an applied robotics class, you know, kind of tied around the same thing. As you know, a couple years ago, Tammy Casey introduced a Legos robotics class that has had some good success, and this is really just sort of like taking robotics to the next level and turning it into a kind of a more advanced class, but also looking at the kids that want to compete in this tournament in March, the first robotics. It gives them an opportunity to spend more time on it so that they are better prepared for that. And the goal is to take the Lego robotics that we've been doing at the high school level and kind of push that down into the middle school and use the middle school as the stepping stone to get kids interested in robotics through that process as a mini, and then they have the applied robotics. The nice thing about that class is students can take it all 4 years, because every year it's a different scenario that they have to focus on. So it's not like they do the same thing each and every year. You know, they go off the basis premise, but then they have to build something different each year. So it's going to be different for the students. So we offered that, and right now we have 17 kids signed up for that class. So it looks like that it's going to be able to be offered. Obviously, when scheduling plays out, those numbers could change based on what the those 17 students are also trying to take in other subject areas. You'll notice there that one of the things that Mr. LaValle would like to do is kind of expand his class space to have a dedicated robotics area, because if you notice with the building of the robotics, a lot of it's done in the shop room, but it has all the sawdust and stuff like that, and trying to find a clean space. So that's something that we are trying to work on, finding a room that is suitable, that's not impinging upon other classes and stuff like that can be dedicated just for it. I mean, you saw here a couple of board meetings ago, and they were here to present, and they had the robotics here. And that's stuff that we invest in monetarily, and the students invest in terms of their time and efforts, and the stuff that can be used year in, year out. So we want to be able to maintain it so that we're not having to buy the stuff each and every year. We just add on to it. Digital signage, that's something that we have talked about. I know a number of years ago, I think that was brought out, but one thing that we're finding is with our announcements, student announcements, we use a Google Doc, and we share it that way so that teachers can add to it, and then through homerooms they present it. We dabbled with this a little bit in the library. They have a monitor in the library, and Patty McConvey and Ann Paulson, they put up the daily announcements as well as the athletic schedule, and that runs in the library. And the talk is to expand that so that we can look into other common areas so that kids are having those reminders throughout the day in terms of the athletic contests and schedules, as well as just the general announcements. So that's been brought up, and we've talked to Joe about how that can be done by having one central computer that can run them all through like a Comcast. Science, I added all these things as future planning because this is what came out of it. But I am happy to say that each one of these items has either been actually completed or in the process of being completed. Because that's the whole idea when we meet with the teachers is, what do you need? What does the department need? So we're looking at it, the 10 microscopes, another computer carts, chemical stock room to be updated, a ventilated chemical hood, kind of a fixing. There's you'll see there's kind of a hole in Mr. Brunner's physics chemistry room, talking about getting that fixed and patched up, as well as a Science Olympiad class, which is like the applied robotics. So we've purchased the 10 microscopes. We've added another cart already to the science department. We've actually purchased a new chemical storage unit, and in the process of updating it and having a more secure storage facility for the chemicals that are in the back room. Did purchase a ventilated hood, and Bobby and his staff have already put it in, and it's operational. The wall will get fixed this summer. That's part of one of the summer projects. And we did throw out the Science Olympiad offering to students. It's kind of the same thing with the applied robotics. It's different every year. And one of the things, as you guys know, our students are involved in a lot of things. And 10th period becomes very congested as kids are trying to do multiple things. So it was suggested, just like with the applied robotics, to offer a Science Olympiad class where you can meet every day, reduce some of that congestion 10th period. As it stands right now, we have 22 kids signed up for that. Kind of backtrack with the applied robotics in Science Olympiad, those numbers don't include the incoming 9th graders. So we haven't even, that's not even based off of 9th graders that might be interested in these two classes. Again, it's a class that's conceivably a student can take every year for 4 years and gets credit for it because of the nature of each year. It's a different project. With English, the big issue there is you're looking at a writing center. That is something that has come up on a number of times, a number of occasions over the years. It even came up when we sat here and we had that discussion about having a full-time librarian, a second full-time librarian. One of the things was to create that writing center. That's also one of the future plannings under the Library Media Center. We believe that once we have the new librarian in place, it's something that could easily be created. We have the space in the library. It's just a matter of now moving some copiers around and creating that dedicated space. Summer reading program, still trying to work on that in terms of building off of what the middle school has done the last couple of years and trying to get that going. It seems like it's something that we talk about, but in the end, so far we have not quite been able to do it. But I think now that as we add another library media specialist to it, and that was one of the things that we talked about in the interview process, is just that. How can we build off of the reading program in the middle school to include a reading environment at the high school as well? They would love to have the SAT tutoring, and I know that's something that was talked about here at the board level in terms of some additional funding for next year. It's a matter of finding, really what it comes down to is finding a person that is able to do that. A couple of years ago, Frank Brunner was able to do it for a few years, but I think as the SAT tests changed, as well as Science Olympiad became even more popular, that kind of took up more of his time. So that's something that Connie and the counseling office and myself are working on, because it is a great opportunity. It's something that we would love to, within the year, check off to say that we can provide that. You'll see that with social studies, because with the Library Media Center, it kind of ties into a lot of the same things with the English department, with the Writing Center. I didn't want to feel like I was going to skip over that. The maker space. And really what it comes down to is a lot of the things out of the Library Media Center, the English, things that we've talked about over the last few years. I truly think that this next year is going to happen. And again, that's because of the decision you guys made to fund a new library media specialist. And again, that was something that was talked about in the interview process of creating the maker space, creating the Writing Center, turning the Library Media Center into an educational place, as well as a place where students can come and feel comfortable in terms of learning. Social studies, you can see they highlighted that. One of the in terms of the Learning and Research Center, they would love to look at, it says that celebration monies, highlighting the positives of our students throughout the year and doing some celebrations along the way. That you'll see kind of like a PBIS at the elementary school as well. So that was something that the social studies department would really like to see happen. I don't think that would cost a huge amount. It's a matter of buying a few things in terms of certificates and things like that, but highlighting the achievements of our students. Math, you'll notice there's a huge list here, and I really wanted to share all of it so that you had an understanding, because math has been an ongoing topic that we've talked about since I've been here. Really the big one that I want to highlight is the very first one, the setting a goal to start looking at a K-12 math curriculum, which they've been doing the last year and a half. They've been working on these steps in terms of improving the math instruction, coming together as a department, and now they are taking the steps. I mean, you can see right over here, we have some of the leftover notes that when they had working days, and that's the process of doing that. So that process has begun in terms of having a unified curriculum, K-12. I think we're also going in the right direction in terms of being on one page in the math curriculum, which kind of leads to the couple bullets down, increased numbers in upper level math. And you'll see here, and these numbers are a little concerning when you look at calculus, 3 students, pre-calc, 16 students. One would automatically say, why do we have 16 students in pre-calc but then 3 students in calc? Where are they all going? And that is like this year. I do want to share with you some numbers, because part of it is it's a cycle. It's based on our enrollments. Because this year, this coming year, we have 13 students signed up for calculus. We have 20 students signed up for pre-calculus. We have 25 students in algebra 2, just a few less. So what you're seeing here is, I mean, that's like a snapshot of 1 year in terms of where students are. But I think the point they're trying to make is trying to keep students in the math cycle and having more students in the end at the higher level math. And that's sort of what this means here. With this point here, only offering algebra regions exams and prep students for calculus. And really, I think what they're talking about, and they've seen it in some other schools, is because the algebra regions is the mandatory math regions exam that all students have to take and pass. But then the idea is to build the foundational skills off of that so that more students can be successful and stay in to get to the higher level math, pre-calc and calculus, and not emphasize the geometry regions, not emphasize the algebra 2 regions, and really just kind of hone in on their skills so that they are more interested, more apt to stay in the math, and you get to the higher level math there. And that's really what they're idea. There's some schools out there that have done that, I think, with some success, and that's really what they're looking at with that. But I think part of it. Well, hello. Oh, come on.
You're gonna lose this competition.
That's fine. That competition is easily lost. Yeah.
So don't even do it.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Nice job.
I would apologize, but it's not me, it's her.
Thank you.
She doesn't have to apologize.
Jojo.
Well, that's great.
Hi. Thank
Hi,
you,
Jojo.
Jojo, come back here. Come here.
Oh, you see what we
What do you have that can beat that?
I'm
done, that's right.
I'm sorry, but I really appreciate it. I do.
Oh, my
That's
goodness.
the interruption, but thank you, Jojo.
And when you look at it in terms of with the math, basically what they're trying to do is increase math proficiency through a K-12 curriculum, and with the hopes there that they will also then increase their numbers of students that are staying in the higher level. If you do look at it, we do offer bridge courses in college algebra as statistics, in addition to the pre-calc and calc. And we've had that conversation before. The pre-calc and calc are also bridge courses through North Country, but when the need is there, your students will take calculus as at the AP level. So that is, we use that as kind of flexible when the desire is there for the students. We just had, like a year ago, we had the students take the AP Calc class even though the class, test, even though it wasn't listed as an AP Calc. So we do offer that when it happens. Just like kind of backtrack, I'll throw in science here. We talked about AP Science, and this year we didn't offer AP Physics because the numbers weren't there. Next year we're planning on offering AP Physics because we have 7 to 9 students that want to take it. So for us, it's the ability is there, for the large part in terms of offering it. It's whether we have the students that are either are capable and or willing to do it. And if we got the students that are willing to do it, we will then offer it. So it's I know it's been a discussion that we've had over the years about those higher level offerings, and even though you don't see it from year to year, we will offer it, and we do put it out there each year for students so that they have that choice. Questions on the math? I know that was a big piece there.
I just had conversations with a number of parents over the last month, basically, about, and this is maybe across the board, why we don't offer some kind of a math versus financial literacy, almost like an intro to economics or accounting or something like that. And it's, I know it doesn't kind of track with this, and this is more the STEM path. But, and again, I know there's so many options right there, you may not even have enough kids to fill one, but it's something I just like to put out there as we go forward in time and think about maybe that might be an option down the road. And again,
we do offer a financial algebra, which sort of has replaced by name business math.
Right.
So we offer that every year.
Okay.
And again, the number of students in that class varies. I think for next year we have 8 or 9. Just 2 years ago we offered 2 sections of it. So it comes down to, again, the need. It's not called, you're right, we don't offer a true accounting class. The financial algebra is probably the closest thing we have to it. And then our half-credit economics, they do some personal finance in that as well. But it's not a full semester long where they're looking at just personal finance. Yeah. So I think the combination between the two, they get some of it, but it by no means do all students take it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a different track when you come to financial algebra. Those students are typically when they're getting the 3rd credit. They weren't looking to do pre-calc or calc or the college algebra and stats, so they take the financial algebra instead, usually as their 3rd math credits. Patty?
I think that's a good point though, because it fell off the 1 year. And no one realized it, and it doesn't show up when you show math classes, and it is a math class, so I think that it's important to put it out there so that people are aware of it, because it's not only relevant for students that maybe aren't in advanced math, because a lot of those students may be going into their own business and they need that class, and I think that class shouldn't be an alternative to advanced math. It should be like possibly those students might be taking 2 math classes and that's one of them. So I don't think it always shows up.
Yeah, what do you mean it doesn't show up?
It's not
Like
on
here,
that
yeah,
list.
like here.
And other times when the classes are put out, it's kind of off to the side, and I think
Right.
that it needs to be put out there so that parents know that it's an option, because they don't. And it's hard to find it, and it shouldn't be. Even though they may not think of it that way, I think it's important for us to.
And it's interesting because you're right. When you look at this, it absolutely is not listed on there. It's
Right.
just the
And
it's
that's
the
not the
algebra
first.
through right.
That's
Yep.
not the first slide.
Right.
I've watched it, and when it fell off, nobody knew that it had fallen off till after the students had picked their classes, and it was too late to get it on until the following year. So I think it's important to realize that it's something that the students in the scene, when the students come back, have commented that it was a very beneficial class for them, and I think we need to give it its credit and have it show up.
I know since I've been here, we've offered it every year. The last 5 years, we've offered financial algebra.
Right.
Yeah. In fact, I have a student doing it, starting it this summer on grad points, because He's an aspiring loser and will be gone for half the year, so it helps reduce the stress in the winter months of trying to keep up with the math. So he's doing, it's basically in grad school, it's called financial math literacy or something like that. Yeah.
And my other question is the where it says only offer algebra regents exam. Does that mean that it's being discussed not to offer the other regents exams?
I think it was thrown out there as something to discuss because they've seen other, like you see here, they've seen some other schools do it, and they call them high performing schools. You can define it differently than I can define it, and we can all define it. What does that really mean, high performing schools? And I think what they're trying to get at is emphasize the one required exam, which is algebra, but then by de-emphasizing the others in terms of regents exams, they can go in a different direction foundationally and teach it not to the tests, but building on foundational skills, do different things, because you're not teaching specifically to get a score on the regents, but to gain skills and try different approaches, different projects that keep kids interested in math beyond algebra. So they'll do geometry, but okay, we're going to do geometry, but we're not going to worry about the regents exam. We're just going to worry about learning about geometry, and then algebra 2 and trig. I think the premise here is if you take away the test aspect of it, you reduce the stress that students could have that go along with that subject, in hopes to keep more kids in, because once you get to pre-calc and calculus, there are no regents exams anyway. And if you can keep more in by de-emphasizing the state testing, maybe you keep, that's the theory, you keep more, it's a discussion that they're having.
Just to clarify, right, so this isn't something we're doing next year.
No.
Right,
Great.
but, yeah.
So when it's being discussed
yeah.
and you need parents to participate,
Sure,
I'm there.
I just wanted to add to it that, yes. Yes, Patty. And as a parent who will no longer be on the board, you'll have all this time extra to participate
Exactly.
in. Right? Just to kind of elaborate on Mr. Wood's point, because we're all in these discussions together. This is actually something that a number of schools, again, these schools that consider themselves high-performing schools, have done also with the advanced placement program. And some of these schools have separated their advanced program from the AP itself because of the concern that the exam narrows the curriculum and prevents them from reaching higher levels of thinking, because there's so much attention to how you can do the test, how you can do the test, how you can do the test. So I think it's a really healthy conversation that we're having. And I think she already made the point. We're not doing it next year, but it's a good conversation, and I think the reasoning behind it is really worth talking about. Because we talk about in the grades 3 through 8 how we don't like the narrowing of the curriculum because everyone's required to do English and math tests. But when it comes to high school courses, we talk about prepping for the Regents exam. So what's the difference? And I think that's a good question to ask, and good points to make. Sorry.
And one thing is it's kind of it's been brought up the last couple of years, and again, most of these things are kind of like preliminary discussions. Are really at the grassroots of just throwing out ideas in terms of how to increase our enrollments with a higher level math. One thing that was brought up is getting away from grade level math, and basically students move on based on ability. You'll see that it talks about, it's the third bullet, fourth bullet down, continuing the conversation about having all 6 through 12 students in math courses based on ability level and not grade level. Basically, it's research. Again, you move forward as your ability is, but you don't track them based on grade, and you don't pigeonhole them because in 6th grade you got to do this, in 7th grade you got to do this, and then you get accelerated for that group of kids, and they do algebra in 8th grade. Well, if you got the 6th grader that can fly through it, and all of a sudden now they want to do algebra as a 6th grader, 7th grader, you allow them to do that, and you move on. But doing that across the board, we've had students, albeit very few, that have kind of run out of math classes because they've advanced like that. I've only seen maybe 2 since I've been here where by the time they're juniors, they kind of run the gamut. They've gone through every math, they've taken AP calculus and all that, and say, okay, what do they do their senior year? Because they've taken everything we offer. So these are really just conversations that they're, when the math department gets together, they're throwing out in terms of how do we increase our enrollments in the higher level math? What can we do to keep kids in the higher level math? But at the same time, I agree with you with the financial algebra and the financial literacy math is you don't want to diminish the importance of that class by saying, well, this is where we want kids to be. Well, financial math is a key math class that, as you're going to say, a lot of kids, if not most kids, should take just to survive once they become adults and they got to balance their own checkbook. Absolutely. The last thing I didn't want to leave out, foreign language. Really what they were talking about here and trying to get is increased sharing, basically looking at the curriculum, the course load. One of the things that we looked at doing this year is those kids that are coming out of middle school and if they end up failing the proficiency, doing something either right after classes end and into the early summer, into summer school, so that they can then pass without having to retake French or Spanish, or what we've been doing is we offer one or the other in terms of language one, and you get kids who might have started in French, but now they're forced to take Spanish, and you've just basically lost that group of kids. They get through it, they struggle, it becomes an issue, they get their credit, and then they're done. And trying to do, mitigate that and get them to get out of language one, out of middle school, so that it gives them the option, a greater option of going into language two as a 9th grader and not have to retake a language that they might not wanted to take it. Like this year we offered French 1 as opposed to Spanish 1, just to kind of change it up, because it seemed like the kids who were in French class were being stuck in, I'm saying stuck because they didn't choose Spanish, but they wanted French. And now, so we switched it up. And now the kids who were in Spanish 1 in middle school had to take French 1 this year. So we're trying to figure out a way so that that's not even an issue going forward, by looking at those very few students that end up not passing their proficiency in middle school and then putting them in summer school and getting that so that they can pass the proficiency and then move on into language two, whether it's French or Spanish, and stay with the language that they prefer. Questions?
The art portfolio in the junior year, I think, is a great idea. In order to take any of the art classes, the students have to take the art, I don't know if it's studio
art, the one
so
credit, yes.
If the art department is shifting things and making some changes, it would be really nice if they would reconsider the mandatory studio art prior to taking other art classes. If there was a way, because sometimes students don't realize it, where their passion is until their junior year. And if they hadn't taken the studio art, if they could take it in conjunction with whatever other class. There have been students that have had unbelievable talent, but because they missed taking studio art just through all the other choices. And I just wish that requirement could maybe be looked at, as it has some flexibility with it for students that clearly can present that they have talent. And I just, especially with that, having 2 years to prepare, I think that it's important to.
Right, yeah, basically what they look at it is, in order to get to the other classes, you got to take the studio art, the 1 credit the full year. That's sort of like the prerequisites to getting into ceramics, photography,
right.
Yeah,
if they
art
could
studio.
co-take it, if that's where their interests are, it just seems a shame that if they wouldn't be allowed.
Right.
When they're running out of years in the school.
And say, maybe that's not a requirement, but you can still get in and do ceramics and all that, and then maybe look at it as, in order to do the portfolio, you have to have a certain number of credits of art classes, because you don't want to stick someone in the portfolio class, which is really getting them geared up for AP Arts. I mean, those that are in portfolio art class are the ones that want to take AP Art as a senior, so they do need to have some foundational skill. I agree, it doesn't necessarily have to be that first class, because I think why in the past they've done it as a prerequisite is because they are exposed to all, the various different modalities, and if kids are interested in it. But yeah, I agree, it's
Well,
something to
with the
look
Center
at.
for the Arts, and there are students that may not have taken an art class in our building who have foundational skills and can prove it through that. I just think that should be considered. If there's, not if someone's never picked up a pencil, you know,
Right.
not that, but
Yes.
if they can prove that.
Yeah, there could be some level of skill.
Right.
Right.
Some tests that could be-
Exactly.
they can take and, yeah, doing that with other classes.
That
Yeah,
absolutely can be looked at, absolutely, yeah.
so.
Any other questions, or I know I took up?
No, this was good,
No,
thank you.
thank you.
This was really very thorough, and a lot of good things are being discussed, so thank you.
I do want to say one more time in this, when you look back, and you probably could look back at all the various things that we've shared, is over the years, the number of things we have been able to check off, and I think it's important, speaking for the teachers, that they are seeing and feeling that their voice is actually being heard, that they're not just talking to us, we write it up, we present it to you, and then we move on to the next year, and nothing really changes. And again, that's, I mean, I look back at these last few years, I attribute a large part to the fact that we've been able to find the funding sources. And that, you know, we have the interest here now, but we've been able to find the funding sources to offer these various things, to keep classes small, to offer Science Olympiad and robotics classes, you know, increase the enrollment in the various classes that Brian Valley teaches as well. So, I mean, that's really, I mean, again, I'm speaking for the teachers, you know, I think they truly feel that their voice is being heard, and, you know, and that's really because you guys find the money to pay for these things, because that equipment in Mr. Valley's classes aren't cheap. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Great, let's move on to the budget status report, Leonard.
Okay, this is the budget status report through May of 2018. I'll go over the revenue status first. Property tax revenue year to date through May was $15,154,237. Other tax items was $41,713. Charges for services $27,241. Use of money is $9,670. Miscellaneous revenue was $98,611. Our state aid through May was $2,376,735 for a total revenue of $17,708,207. And if you look at where we were last year at this time, we're about just about 0.5% higher in collected revenue than we were last year at this time. Is there any questions on the revenue side? On the expense side, salaries through May were $6,872,059. Employee benefits was $5,177,861. Contractual and BOCES expenses were $2,183,752. Materials and supplies, $384,029. Equipment, $64,855. Debt service, $171,282. And textbook expenses through May were $20,416 for a total year-to-date expenditures through May of $14,874,254. And looking at last year at this time, we're just about 1.25% higher this year than we were last year. Any questions on the expense side? Okay.
Then we'll move on to the treasurer's report. Are there any questions on that? Not, we'll move to the committee reports. Health and safety for building and grounds. It's the first one. Leonard, has provided the minutes of that last meeting. Do you have anything you want to add, or are there any questions concerning those minutes?
I can give some updates
Okay.
on some of the areas there. The security cameras, the equipment, the actual cameras were delivered last week, and they are starting the installation of that as of yesterday.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
Right on time.
that work has started, yeah. The emergency project on the stone facade, I did contact our insurance company. We have an insurance adjuster coming to look at it tomorrow, or Thursday morning around 10 o'clock. We'll have a look at that to see if it will be covered in our policy. Peter Lynch did not think it was too hopeful, but we're going to have a look at it. So we'll find out more about that on Thursday. The door surveillance project, we did get one bid. We have two other companies that have looked at the areas, and they're in the process of preparing their quotes and getting it to us. We haven't received them yet.
Is there a timeline on those?
As soon as possible.
I mean, did you give them a timeline to?
I did. I told them. Yeah, they know it's an immediate need. So I didn't give them an actual day, but I said, you know, we need those immediately. So.
Any questions? Then policy meeting, Patty?
Yes. The meeting, we went over some of the ones that need to be gone over annually, and there were most of what we went over, everything is fine. The good news is that the policy manual that is now complete seems to be working well for the district, I'd say, because when we look at them and we've had different situations come up and they haven't been reviewed in a while, there aren't changes that need to be made because they where we want them, which was really nice, because for a while we kept having to change everything constantly and it was getting a little discouraging, but I think it's now in a much better place. And as recommendations come in from NISBA, we had already made the changes that they're recommending without their recommendations, and that's been enjoyable. And because we're pretty proud of our changes when we make them, and it's been good. So now we have the summer off from policy, and we don't have another meeting until October.
Good. Yeah. Any questions on policy? Good. And we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, it's Tuesday of the final week of school, and so I think it's just a nice moment to do some reflecting. As the school year comes to a close, I just want to thank everyone who has made this a good year, including our guests who steal the show every time. By the way, JoJo. But we have seniors graduating on Friday. Our graduates are headed out to the real world. They're going to colleges, some of them close to home, some of them far away, some of them maybe in the military. Some are going to pursue jobs that they've been prepared for, maybe through our CTE classes. Some are going to pursue jobs that are new to them. I think it's really important when you look at seniors walking across the stage that you remember that the school plays a big part in their lives, but not just in their senior year. That it's really 13 years of impact and influence. For 13 years, people who work here have had a significant and positive impact on our kids' lives. So it's just a nice time, I think, to thank the teachers, the teaching assistants, the people who work with them in kindergarten and in 5th grade and in middle school, and maybe aren't the first people they recall, but who had a big impact on their lives. It's important to thank the secretaries and the bus drivers, the cafeteria servers, the custodians. These are people who look out for our kids throughout, and you see that in the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school. So just a nice opportunity to thank all the people who have made a lasting contribution to the lives of our children. The work these people do every day makes a big difference in their lives, and both as children, but also as the adults that they will become. Now you oversee this work that they do. You play a tremendous role as well. And so today is also a nice chance to thank you for all that you've contributed to our kids, both the ones who are graduating and the graduates to come. So thanks for that. As far as the week itself, a lot of events have been going on. Friday night we celebrated our 8th graders as rising high school students. This is the future class of 2022. And they have already completed school and celebrated, and now they're enjoying their summer. Yesterday morning we graduated our kindergartners and had some nice remarks from our high school valedictorian, our high school salutatorian, Gracie Davey and Will Miller, who spoke to the kindergartners and had some nice things to say to them. Last night, all of our seniors were honored during the Senior Awards and Scholarship Night. Tomorrow, our elementary school students will be cheering as they leave the school, because they're all excited about summer vacation. But just after dismissal, our 5th graders will remain for their graduation ceremony, and they'll also have guest speakers from the high school. Wednesday night is the annual Senior Baccalaureate ceremony, 7 o'clock at the Adirondack Community Church. And finally, of course, is graduation at 7 p.m. on Friday night. The forecast is looking very nice, and so I hope you have plans to sit on the stage and enjoy the wonderful, wonderful scene, and do a little of that for me as well. So it's just a special time to reflect and I think to celebrate. And speaking of reflecting and celebrating, some special thanks tonight that we've already been celebrating, which is thanks to Mary and Patty as they leave the board tonight. 6 years ago, you both came to the board amidst some challenging times, and I would say thanks in large part to your guidance and efforts. Today our school district is more stable, it's more trusted, it's more transparent, and it's just overall a better place for kids than it's been for a long time. And you deserve great thanks for what you've done. And on a personal note, thank you from me. For some reason you put your faith in a rookie administrator 5 years ago. Not sure why. And I was at the bottom of a very steep learning curve in a lot of different areas. And so I thank you for that. Mary, it's been a long time since you and I had that cup of coffee in the Blue Moon. And Mary, Patty, a long time since you and I met at Alfred University and kind of discussed what was to come. And those were important moments that I'll remember. So thank you from me, but from all of us. You'll both be missed.
Thank you. Thank you.
And that's everything.
Just a note. Bosie's graduation at North Country Community College, I had the opportunity of shaking about 118 hands. And I took special note of the Lake Placid kids, and I'm very proud of them, because when you shake a hand, when they look you in the eye and they have a firm handshake, it means a lot. And it means a lot what they're going out into the world to. And the majority of them looked me in the eye, thanked me, and had a good, strong handshake, which I think means a lot. And that's how it's done.
Thanks, Roger. Information for the board. There's several things there. I'm going to go through them, not in any particular order, but I am going to leave the board objectives to the last. But there is the NISBA convention, which is Thursday, October 25th through Saturday, October 27th. We usually send some people, so if you're interested in that, as a board member, you just need to communicate that, and that would be put on the agenda for one of the next meetings. But it should happen soon because we want the early bird special. So we want to do the reorg meeting. So if you're interested in going, let Karen know, so that we have a number that we can include in, that can be included in the resolution. The proposed 2018-19 meeting dates are also included, so take a look at those and see if there are any issues with that and bring those to the next meeting. The active committee list, we do need board members to participate on those, so take a look at those and find one or two that are of your interest and join those. There is also one that, it's not a board committee, but the professional development committee has a board member as a representative, so we would be looking for somebody to do that also. The math teaching assignments are there. Does anybody have any questions about those? And then finally is the NISBA reception that will be, I believe is it next Wednesday?
The one
at the
in-
Wild Center?
Yeah.
So if you're interested in going and haven't RSVP, please make sure you do that as soon as possible. And then I think finally are the goals and objectives. And Karen, Rick, and I went through these and tried to highlight in blue those that we felt had been accomplished. Some are kind of half in blue and some issues were not, but we did work on it. So if you have any questions or any comments about those.
No, are they, so when it comes time to retire these goals and then start the new ones, can this, even with the blue, with that explanation, be posted so that it's able to be referenced?
Yes, it could be put in the library.
Yeah, I think that's a nice thing to do, and same thing with how we did it last year with the link to the strategic plan, that everything that linked up this year then is able to be referenced, but then you start fresh
Right.
with the next year.
Yep.
With the list, just as far as what's in public and not, so the last meeting, the notes, once we did the future planning, they got moved into the public. Will that happen with Dana's? And then can the math assignments go there? Just because it's a question, and if it's under executive, then I can't answer it. And if I can just reference people to this meeting, it would be a lot easier.
Sure.
Okay.
The active committees even can be.
Yeah, sure, that would be great. Yeah, I just think it's nice to be able to.
Actually, all of that, the meeting dates, the active committees.
Pretty much every,
yeah, all of it.
We should put everything we can, actually.
That would be great. Thank you.
And then finally, we have linking goals with agenda items. We unintentionally admitted that at the last meeting, so we have 2 meetings to do. Last meeting was June 5th. I listed some things. I had the student composting presentation, actually about a lot of our goals. Students first and foremost, education, finance, leadership, community outreach. Future planning from the elementary and middle school, students first and foremost, education. BOCES health insurance agreement, I put down as finance. Donation acceptance, students first and foremost, education, community outreach, leadership. The law conference approval was leadership. Those were the 5 I had. Did anybody have anything else to add?
I think, and I'm not sure where it goes, but the information on the Disney trip, I think, should be linked. The chorus.
I think that's education. I agree.
And so, if we could just.
Because it's part of
in.
providing programs and experiences for students.
Right.
Yeah. So add that in. Good. Anything else? Right. Then for this meeting, there's actually a lot. Again, future planning, students first and foremost, education. The objectives review would be leadership. Board discussion, students first and foremost, where we would talk about the safety issue. Budget transfers would be finance. Emergency repair resolutions, students first and foremost, finance. Donation acceptance, students first and foremost, education. the sports merger, students first and foremost education. Any others? And that moves us to our discussion, which is with student safety. Roger, I'll let you start us off.
Sure,
Please.
I'll get the ball rolling, and then I hope board members will join in. And I think Dave Corson spoke very powerfully about his concerns as both a parent as well as an employee. And I really appreciate Dave's comments, and like I said, as Dave said, also had this discussion last week, and I know he also talked with our high school principal, Mr. Wood. It's true that we've had a few instances over the past weeks when we've had some door issues. Before, maybe a few weeks ago, we had some incidents where doors were left propped open, and those are especially on hot days. We made every effort to address those very quickly. We also have had trouble with the gymnasium doors, and I think Dave pointed that out. And just to be more open, it's not the only one. We've had a couple of others as well. And what we're finding is that with sand and salt in the frames, the latches are not always catching, and so the door will look secure, but it is not. And so as we find those, we are fixing them, and that's true of both buildings. We're finding that to be the case. And some of the old doors with some of the frames, especially with the winter, the fallout from the winter salt, and then the sand that collects there. It's also true that the police were very present, not this past week, or not last week, but the week before that. And then not after that week. However, we did, especially in the middle high school, have additional staff assigned to common areas. I think Dave pointed out that there was nobody assigned to the lobby overtly, or at least at that point, of the gymnasium. But we did have additional staff assigned to the first floor and the second floor common areas in order to monitor situations more thoroughly. As usual, throughout all these weeks, we have people, many of us, who are present outside at the start of the day and in the hallways during the day. Those are just some things I wanted to put out there. I also wanted to add that there are many things that we're doing, and of course we've already mentioned some of them, and there's many things throughout the course of the last year or two that we've been doing. I won't mention them all, but just briefly right now, Leonard mentioned the installation of the security cameras, which began yesterday. And then the door alert systems, which we're awaiting the final quotes, and we're hopeful that they'll be affordable, although we know that these are more expensive than we would probably like. A couple of other things. We renewed our subscription to the anonymous alert system, which gives students and families an opportunity to share some information with us anonymously if they so choose. And so we'll continue to use that. You know that we review our safety plan on an ongoing basis. We're also moving ahead, again, this isn't news to anybody here, but with the building project. And of course, the building project, just as a reminder, includes those secure entrances and the resisting class that has been a part of that project since the very beginning. And that's at both buildings. And just some broader thoughts, because I think Lisa brought up something interesting. She talked about kids being worried and people being worried. There's no question, right? People are worried. Worries and concerns about school violence are with us right now, and I think that they continue to grow, and I don't need to tell you that there are some big incidents that occur that add to this worry. You go back 5 years to Sandy Hook Elementary. Of course, we're still responding to that. But this year, Parkland, Florida, Santa Fe, Texas, these situations have everybody on edge. But I also think it's important for us, as we look at those situations that come to us through the media and sometimes through social media, that we also pay attention to the difference between the perception of danger and the actual risk that's at hand. And of course, nothing is all knowable, so we don't always know everything that's at hand. But just some things to think about. schools are still the safest place for children. According to some recent research that was conducted at Northeastern University, shooting incidents involving students have been declining since the 1990s. Most people don't think of it that way because the incidents that they read about are so horrific and so much in our face that that's what we remember. But they've been declining for the last 20 years. And so, you know, we do respond to the perception, and we're responding to the perception as well as to any real risk, and we continue to do that. You know, in terms of securing our buildings, and we continue to find different ways, and I think, again, Lisa made those points, there are little things you can do, there are little things that we're doing to secure our buildings, and paying attention to these additional pieces that we can add, as well as to the problems we're facing, like we mentioned with the doors that's been brought up. Still, however secure our buildings are, there's no perfection in that. The best way that we can maintain not just real safety, but also the perception of safety, I think, is to maintain the positive lines of communication that exist between our kids and our families and our schools. And we've talked about that this year because we've had a couple of situations that made everybody very nervous this year. But the reason we were able to find out about them and address them was because we had people who were willing to share the information, and we were able to respond to that information. And that happens when you have a positive school climate, right? And the more positive your school climate, the more comfortable people are to talk with each other about what's going on. So it's just as important for us to be sure that we're paying attention to a positive school climate as it is that we're paying attention to our door locks, our cameras, right, and the police presence, right, that Dave mentioned. We just want to make sure that we don't lose sight of one for the other. And I guess that's really my point in all that. So that's my statement for the discussion. I just want to sit back and listen to what board members are interested in.
Yes, I guess I'll start it off. I've got a question about where do we stand with the building project from Albany's approval?
As far as the overall project,
The overall, yeah.
19, 20 years starting?
Yes.
10 to 12 months in the review process right now. The actual application has been submitted, and we're just on the review process, starting the review process at SED.
And so then we're really looking at a gap of 10 to 12 months before we'll have the new doors and the, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Before we can begin construction.
Before we can
Yeah. The actual construction is planned to start in May of 2019. So as far as the review process, and everything is still on target for that start date. So.
But the doors are being fixed. The doors that are problem doors are being fixed this summer. The door sensors are not tied to that building project. So
right, just like the cameras aren't.
Right, just like.
Well, okay. What other safety provisions, I guess, that just generally are tied up with the building project?
Bulletproof glass, the secure entrances both at this building and the elementary school.
Yeah, so that's the main that was the main gist of it. That when we developed the construction project, and frankly, some of this was a response to one of those incidents I mentioned, the Sandy Hook incident, and so the idea of having a secure entrance and where we can evaluate whoever's coming into the building in a very safe environment that's also very protected from the building itself. And then to pay attention to glass, because if you walk around, say, the middle of high school or the elementary school, right, it's all windows on the first floor, right, and so recognizing that those are some of the areas that pose future risk, and so it's those entrances and the resistant glass that most of our attention is going towards in terms of safety of the construction project.
For this, yes.
Yeah, and we actually made a concerted effort to kind of do the camera project first and independent of, because that was actually going to be part of, well, not really, but it was part of the Smart Schools grant that is
supposed to be.
Yeah,
They
so
were
we
supposed to get 3
funded
years
it.
ago.
Yeah, we funded it as opposed to waiting for money to come in from the state of New York.
Mm.
Because it was, we considered it very important. And so those are the steps we take right now, in addition to the ones that are going to start a year from now.
Roger, is there a plan for, I mean, we could have bulletproof glass, we could have cameras, we could have, and if people are propping doors,
Right.
so the obvious question is there an educational component that will take place on an ongoing basis with the entire staff? It seems almost rhetorical.
I mean, I think the answer is yes, but it's also, I think the idea of those door alerts, which again, we haven't committed to those yet, we're still in the exploration state there, but the idea of that was to recognize that all the education in the world doesn't mean that a kid or an employee who just isn't thinking at the moment, could, for whatever reason, leave a door open, or the door itself, as you can see, because if it's some kind of flaw, gets stuck in the open state. So that was really where that came in. Again, we'll see where we go with that, but the answer is yes, and we're kind of, I would say, making some of those educational statements right now. Would you agree, Mr. Wood?
Absolutely. I mean, because you're almost right, Rick. And what we do is seems like we're constantly reminding students and staff in terms of propping doors open, not opening doors. One of the things that we've done to kind of control the flow pattern of people coming in is we've eliminated what doors can be accessed from outdoors during the daytime. And we've gone to the ramp in the rear main entrance. And kids have, over the years, been very used to coming in, various points of entry unnoticed. And responding to one of these, situations, we shut it down. We have, signs up. We were, educated the students and the staff to, you don't open the door. It doesn't matter if that's your buddy out there. You tell them to go around, because we're trying to get people to come into 2 single points of entry for security purposes.
And sometimes the staff is educating us too.
Yeah,
As an example, cafeteria has a door which we allow students to go outside during lunch. But then there's usually a 5 or 10 minute gap between the end of one lunch and beginning of another lunch. And one of the people who was on duty there said, we had the door unlocked during that lunch, but it stayed unlocked for the second lunch. It would be 3 lunches in a row, right? And that's a risky moment, 5-10 minutes. And so we addressed that. So, and we saw that our custodians are now locking those doors, and we're opening those only for that time when kids and our monitors are present. So.
And we are going to put up friendly reminders on all of the exterior doors, particularly the ones that aren't easily seen, just reminding everyone to keep the doors shut and locked. We've seen that in other schools where they just have a little smiley face, saying something like, "Don't forget to make sure the door, remains shut and locked." Just something simple, the educational piece, non-threatening, kind of trying to make it light, but in the same time send the same, the message, consistent message that the doors need to remain locked. Don't prop them open.
It's a real cultural shift. I mean, we have, in this district, been really kind of insulated from events in the outside world, and the history tells us now, recent history tells us now we're not, nobody is. So it's a real cultural shift in thinking in terms of propping doors, the doors of letting other people, by opening the doors and letting somebody in. So it just really changes all of our thinking. So it will take time to get everybody on the same page, I think. Colleen, yeah, you have a question.
Can I just ask a question? I know I'm in a strange position because I'm on this hiatus from the official board, so to say, but I shared with Roger today that once you are appointed to the board, you're often approached in the community from various people and you're asked questions, and that has come up, the security issue. I did want to ask exactly what the definition is of this secure entrance or the vestibule going into the building. Is it a separate section, as you go through a first section of doors, and then you receive permission then to go into the building. Okay. The other question I have is, and again, this was posed to me, many of us have read different articles or seen various news segments on the national news about some districts that have implemented certain things within their building above and beyond maybe what we're doing here or what other schools are, and maybe above and beyond what our budget allows us to do. But have we ever considered putting this out to the voters, a separate bond issue? For example, what if, and I don't know if this has already been looked at, it could have been before I came on board, checking with certain agencies, the state troopers, some other organizations about metal detectors walking into the building, those types of maybe things beyond where we're at right now, and allowing the voters to decide, is this $500,000 expenditure or whatever it is to further secure our buildings, is this worth as much as it is putting it out to the voters that we're asking them to do an addition onto the gymnasium or the addition that we did at the elementary school? Why don't we give the voters the opportunity to look at a security package beyond where we're at right now and let them decide if they want that extra being put in? And I don't know, again, what the procedure is, but I don't know. I think all of the things that we're doing that you've mentioned so far are wonderful, but is there something else that we could be doing to prevent? I mean, we don't think it's going to happen here, and God help us, we never do, but you just don't know. So I'm just putting it out there from the feedback that I get from people in the community.
And I would say that's something that the future board will need to address.
It's an ongoing conversation, and
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
those issues just have to constantly be put out there and discussed, and in some cases voted on and acted upon. But yeah, it's not going away, and it's not getting less complicated.
No,
It's getting
absolutely
more.
not.
It might be a good topic to spark the growth of the shared decision-making committee, which we've had trouble with getting, but that might be the perfect topic to have that committee address and make recommendations.
We've got a document, and I've seen it, that show, like architectural drawings of the entries and stuff. Is that something we can share? Not the technical aspects of it, what it looks like. So there's been some questions about it. I know it exists.
I mean,
It's available.
we have the one that we already shared with the public.
Right, yeah, that one. But
Yeah,
it seems like
we
it
do
might be a
have
good
that.
time to bring that back out, because there's questions being asked about it, and the answers are all there. I mean, the public voted on the capital project, and that's part of the information packet that was put out when, last year when that was presented to the public for vote.
Colleen, I'd urge, people to do their research too. I mean, I've read a rather extensive article on, you can put up all the metal detectors and resource officers, and this last shooting, they had all that.
Yeah.
It's what sort of environment, we go back to Roger's comment, does that set for our students? They're walking into this environment of fear almost. But yeah, it'd be a great discussion to have.
It's definitely a tough topic.
Oh,
I mean, I don't think there's any easy answer to anything, and I truly believe if someone wants to do harm, they're going to find a way regardless of whatever fences you put up or whatever. But it is something that was just, brought to my attention, and I
Sure.
thought, what, let's pose it.
Thanks.
Well, maybe the slideshow that goes over the whole capital project, maybe there can be just a spot on the web page for safety, specifically safety improvements that could
And make
just
that part of it.
be there, and
Yeah.
then those slides, so you don't have to look through
Yeah.
all of them. But it could
That's
just
a good idea.
be a easy access, and that way people would know what's coming. I, kind of off of what Mary had said about changing the culture and people, I think there were community members and parents that showed up at a meeting in the fall and who had a lot, were willing, had a lot to offer, and were saying that they would like to be part of a conversation as far as helping the school when there was the situation with the gun in the school. And from them talking, like, one of them had worked in a bank, and I think one had been in the service, but their perspectives on building security and just for them what was common sense was a lot different than my perspective and what I would consider common sense. And I think it would be really helpful, if it's possible, to access some of those people in the community that have a perspective, a more security perspective. Maybe they're correctional officers, maybe they're ex-military, that can just do a walkthrough and notice things that people who live in that environment every day don't even consider or notice, that might be simple adjustments that could be made over the next year before everything else is put into place. Because just a couple of, I can't remember specifics, but I just remember the perspective thing. When they brought up something, I was thinking, wow, I've never thought of it that way. That just isn't how I would think about something, but what they said made a whole lot of sense. So I think reaching out to, and I don't know who they were, but I think other people might know who they were.
Are you talking about the meeting in the library?
Yeah. So I don't need to name people now or nominate them to a committee. I just, or when people are approaching you, if they have that kind of perspective, and it's similar with, you know, gun safety steps, and Rick had brought up before that we taught with gun safety. I just think, and it includes the police and their perspective and walkthroughs. I just think when you're living in a place that you're comfortable, you don't see what's right in front of you. I mean, and it, you know, my kids come home from elementary school. I remember when they were really little and they would point out safety hazards in my house, and I'm like, gosh, glad you figured that out. Thanks. So I think it's a similar, just fresh perspective.
But we do have the police come through. I mean, the police have come through.
No,
and given
yeah,
us
no,
the
I
answer.
know that they do, and parents have commented that they like it, but I think there might be more out there in the community that would be willing to help
And I think that's where
and offer simple fixes.
Perfect for the shared decision.
So
because that is to involve community, so it would be good. Anything else? Let's move on. Thank you, Roger. And thank you, Dan, for bringing it to our attention. We'll move on to the action items. The minutes we've accepted. We'll move to personnel matters. The first one is a civil service retirement. Proposed action reads, upon recommendation of the superintendent, accept the retirement of Clarence Wright, custodian at the middle and high school, effective November 30th, 2018. Is there a motion to accept this retirement? Somebody?
Yes.
Lynn, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Patty. Before we vote, I want to say that I work with Clarence, and he often cleaned my room, and we had good conversations, but I think my best memory of Clarence was after the last dress rehearsal for one of the musicals was late. It was probably 10:30, 11 o'clock. He was scheduled to go home, but the last thing we had to do was paint the stage floor before the first performance. And we're getting paint and getting everything gathered up, and we look around and here's Clarence right beside us helping us paint, staying late and helping us paint and getting it done. So he's one of those people that just couldn't do enough to help you. So as a person, so I wish him well, but I'm also sorry to see him go because I think he'll be a big loss to the district. With that, are there any other comments?
Very nice write-up.
Yeah. Good guy. So, would everybody please vote? The motion carries 7-4-0 against. Teaching staff appointment. The recommended action reads, upon recommendation of the superintendent, appoint Caitlin Patnode. Is that how you pronounce her name? Certification pending for library media specialist to the position of librarian at the middle high school, the tenure area of library media specialist for a probationary period of 4 years commencing on September 1st, 2018 and ending on August 31st, 2022. Salary for the 2018-19 school year is step 3, masters in 37 hours at $47,997 of the Lake Placid Education Association negotiated agreement July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve this appointment?
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff. Is there a second?
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan. Is there discussion? Questions? If not, let's please vote. Motion carries 7-4-0 against. Next is a long-term teaching staff appointment. The recommended action reads, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, Tamara Combs is hereby appointed to the long-term position of secondary English teacher in the middle and high school, replacing Carissa Maryhugh, commencing on September 4th, 2018 until January 27th, 2019. Initial reissuance ELA 7 through 12. Salary is calculated at $48,247, which is step 31. The master's in 478 hours. Is that correct? No.
No.
What?
Masters plus. Oh, let's see that.
Oh, well, what is the, sorry. That's funny.
It's a big step.
That's a big step already.
And not very good salary at this.
You know the agreement?
Yeah,
So here we go.
I know.
You know where it is?
Of course.
Okay.
Let's table that one until later. So we'll go to the superintendent contract extension. Will we be able to do this without Karen? The recommended action reads, whereas Dr. Roger P. Catania's contract will expire on June 30th, 2019, whereas the Board of Education wishes to extend the contract of the superintendent, Dr. Roger P. Catania, to June 30th, 2020, whereas Dr. Roger P. Catania wishes to extend his contract by signing the addendum for extension. Now, therefore, the Board of Education approves the addendum for contract extension of Dr. Roger P. Catania until June 30th, 2020, as per the attached. Is there a motion to
Yes.
approve? Thank you.
Like that.
Is there a second?
Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Is there discussion?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
for
thank you.
accepting. Yes.
Absolutely.
So if there is no discussion, please vote. And the motion carries 7-4-0 against.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we can go back to the long-term teaching staff appointment, and so it should read, salary is calculated at $48,247, which is step 3, and a master's in
47.
47 hours of the teacher's salary schedule for the 2018-19 school year. Is there a motion to approve this appointment?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Is there a second?
Yes.
Thank you. I heard Jeff over here first. Is there discussion? If not, please
Is it, I'm sorry, is it for the whole year? How do we, or is it?
No,
I
it's
don't
until
remember the
January.
dates. It's till January.
Yeah.
Okay, I just,
January
I was gonna change my vote, I just was curious.
Karen's changing.
I finally agree.
the
Motion carries
as we speak,
7-4-0
yeah.
against, yep.
It's prorated salary, right? So it's prorated for the time that she's there.
Next is creation of a new position. Recommended action reads, upon recommendation of Superintendent, the Board of Education hereby creates the position of RTI math teacher / athletic director effective with the 2018-19 school year. This is not a tenured position. Is there a motion to approve the creation of this position?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Is there a second?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Is there discussion?
As far as the position goes, I just wondered about is there a reason why to put it together and not have it be two separate? Only because if for some reason it didn't work, and then we still needed a part-time, we still needed those two positions, if they're not combined, it couldn't be done between two people.
So I guess what I would recommend, if that were to happen, then we
Then
could change the positions.
Redo it, okay.
Yeah, otherwise it can be kind of awkward and maybe not clear. And
Okay.
by putting them together, the person who gets appointed to,
Cool
yeah,
people.
yeah.
Those
uh,
45
is-
people maybe.
Yeah, knows what they're committed to.
Yeah, I just wondered about that as far as creating and then recreating
Sure,
and
absolutely.
so, yeah.
It's a bit complicated.
I know. Right, exactly. I'm not sure how we're dividing up the person, but.
I had a question about so it's a non-tenured position, but he's leaving a tenured position, isn't he?
Right, he doesn't lose his tenure.
Okay, but the position itself.
Right, the position, anytime you have a half-time of anything,
Yeah,
it's non-tenured, yeah.
I was just curious.
But he still maintains.
He maintains his tenure and his seniority.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. There are no other questions. Let's please vote. The motion carries 7-4-0 against. And then the last personnel matter. Recommended action, upon recommendation of the superintendent, appoint John Burdick, permanently certified pre-K, K, and 1 through 6, the position of RTI math teacher / athletic director, beginning with the 2018-19 school year. Mr. Burdick will be paid at his current salary for the 2018-19 school year, plus the athletic director stipend for the 2018-19 school year as stated in the LPEA contract dated July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2020. This is not a tenured position. Is there a motion to approve this appointment?
Yes.
Thank you, Patty. Is there a second? Thanks, Rick. Is there discussion?
Can we get the attachment moved into the second part of it? Is it where it links to him in the first one?
The
creation of the position.
the creation of the position?
Right, where he's
Burdick
asking, I
transfer
think Burdick's information should go under where
the letter?
Burdick's getting the position.
letter
Yeah, the letter,
attachment?
yes, yes.
Mhm. Can we do
Yes.
that? Can we do that? You're okay if we do that after the?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, the answer is yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, then please vote. There it is. All right. Motion carries 7-4-0 against. And we have additional action items. The first one we need to address is C, emergency repair resolution. And again, I'm not going to read it all. This was information presented at the last meeting, so that be it resolved, the Board of Education approves the emergency repairs and the transfer of $30,000 from the general fund to the capital fund and issue a purchase order to the successful bidder to begin the project in the summer of 2018-19 school year. And be it further resolved, the Board of Education further directs the business manager to make said transfer for the recognized amount of $30,000 from the general fund to the capital fund by June 30th, 2018. Is there a motion to approve both the emergency repair resolution and the transfer of funds?
Yes.
Thank you, William. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Jeff. Are there questions or is there discussion? If not, then let's please vote.
Does it show?
Okay, the motion carries 7-4, 0 against. Sorry, a little brain delay. Then the next is D. I'm going to just shorten this. Is there a motion to approve the resolution as stated below regarding the State Environmental Quality Review Act and lead agency? Is there a motion?
Yes.
Thank you, Liam. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Rick. Is there discussion?
Can I, what part of this causes it to involve that? Because we've had repairs on the building before. Causes this to be involved?
It's because we have to submit this project to state ed. That's, if we don't, if a lot of those projects we did in-house, they didn't go to state ed. So this one here is going to, it's a project that has to be approved by them.
Yeah, but this is, what this statement says is that we, you, the board,
Right.
claim this is a type 2.
Type 2,
Right.
and as the lead agency.
And therefore is not, if there's no environmental impact statement needed. So you're making that, by voting, that's what you're asserting.
What decides it goes to the state ed department? The size of the project?
This one in particular has implications for building permit. So it has to go to state ed to get
Okay.
that building permit.
Okay.
So that's the reason.
All
And
right.
it's an emergency type thing we're trying to get pushed through.
Right, okay. Yeah, I just knew that there were other things done
Yeah.
that it didn't involve this, and I couldn't, those were able to be done without having been, okay, all right.
If there are no other questions, please vote. Motion carries 7-4, 0 against. We skip to F, the merger, sports mergers. Recommended action is to approve the following sports merger resolutions for the 2018-19 school year. This involves girls hockey merger with Saranac Lake and Tupper Lake. It involves boys hockey merger with Keene Central. Alpine skiing, girls alpine skiing merger with Alsable Valley. Boys Nordic skiing merger with Keene Valley. Boys varsity tennis merger with Saranac Lake. And a softball merger with Keene. And a football merger with Saranac Lake. Is there a motion to approve these mergers?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Joan. Is there discussion?
Yes. I've got a lot of questions and concerns. Some of them have been brought to me by community members. So, just go through them. How does the question I have is on funding. When, I think it's the Keene, where was I? When Keene is merging with us because they don't have a team, are they contributing to the cost of that program?
No, they're not. As a matter of fact, in all these cases, including when we're merging with schools that also have a team, we're not contributing to the cost. It's a welcoming without that contribution. So, for example, you made that example. There's also the boys football merger example.
Yeah.
So we don't contribute to the boys football team in Saranac Lake. It's also true that, so for example, the girls alpine skiing merger, right? So you have the Ausable Valley, one person joining our team, they don't contribute, but they do provide usually their own transportation, and then they'll join in with our team, with our coaches. So no, there's no additional charge for either way, with the exception of, and this is important too, the girls hockey merger. So the girls hockey merger with Saranac Lake and Tupper Lake, although the cost is borne really by the two school districts, Saranac Lake and Lake Placid, has been a shared effort in all ways. And this is really the first time we've done this, that we have done a true sharing of all costs. of transportation, and of coaching, and even things like ice time. It's a good point that's brought up, and the merger with Saranac, the girls hockey merger is one that has actually probably saved us a significant amount of money, whereas the other ones, there's no savings on either end. There's also very little cost associated, and that's really where it is.
Okay, and then my concern is really with the football team. Historically, Lake Placid has not had a football team, and though there's no apparent cost really for our district, I think that it's to talk about school safety. Talk about the Columbines and the Sandy Hooks and the whatever, but that is the 1 in a million. What is not the 1 in a million is traumatic brain injury or other injuries that lead to opiate use, that then lead to opiate addiction. So I personally feel that we should not be. We have hockey, and beyond that Lake Placid Central School should not be involved in football with Saranac Lake, and I want to vote to approve based on the cost, that there is no real cost or that it's low. I'm okay with voting on the rest of these sharing, but football in particular, I can't vote for it. So.
Good point. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it in those terms. I thought of it in terms of here's an opportunity for somebody here to participate in a sport that they're interested in, but you bring up some good points.
And I just, in particular, I've had a colleague whose brother died, and he was going to say he had a scholarship to a school upstate, and gets injured in football. They start him on fentanyl, and he was one of the deaths, one of the recent overdose deaths. And so that, to me, it's not the school shooter, it's not the terrorist. That's they're certainly out there, but it's the opioid crisis, it's the TBI crisis, and so I share those concerns with members of the community, and will again vote to oppose this resolution if it includes the football sharing.
Well taken. I just suggest you do some research on injuries. Soccer has more concussions than football. Hockey has more concussions than football. So football's been pigeonholed out there just because of the NFL, but I think we have to be cautious in equal access for all kids. There's accessory risks with anything. So, but your point's well taken. I think that's a different perspective.
And then my other point is that just we never had a football team. Like
I played football here.
That's true. That's true. And we did. We had a football team, and Coach Morgan, was also, So I take that back. But for me, institutional memory, I guess, for me is that it just didn't exist. And so why do we need another contact sport?
Some may claim that I'm headed.
And I'll just share the discussion last year, because this was a new shared program last year, and I appreciate all your points. I think they're really well taken, and you're putting things in perspective for us. The football merger was specifically identified as something that could benefit. We were identifying maybe 6 or 7 kids who weren't participating in any extracurricular activities, and we were trying to figure out ways to get them involved. And these were kids who were interested in participating in football. Now, the truth of the matter was that the challenges of distance and transportation, and frankly being new to a sport, at least a high school level sport, meant that I think we went down to 2 and then one participant. So we started with 6 or 7. Again, the goal being to get them involved, and it ended up being 2 or 1. So last year we didn't have this was not a widely used shared program. So I just want to make sure that was the conversation that got us into it in the first place.
I think, but several, I work with orthopedics, so, and we see regionally, it's not just our district, and so I believe that the injuries happen, and bad injuries, in all sports. And so I think the coaching and the educating and getting the information out there, but, and the need for pain medication is with all sports injuries. So I think if the kids, if that's their interest and they can do the training and do the research, and I think their coaches are trying to be better about getting the information out, that if that was the direction that we're going, we'd have to eliminate a lot of activities in the school, even gym class. So we see a lot of injuries, and they're not from the sports you'd expect them to be.
And we do have pretty strict, we're required to have pretty strict concussion protocols now too, so, and those are in place. So that would be the other thing to keep in mind.
The one thing I had a comment for this section is I think it would be really nice, and I'm not sure how to go about it, but to, from a more positive perspective, I think the mergers are great as far as getting the information about them out there. So if we've had some nice success and the hockey team did well, and if there's a way to get an article written that talks about some of these mergers, for them to get some feedback. And I know that we shared hockey players when my son was participating, and it was just a great crossover with other districts and getting the kids interacting with students from other districts. And it happened with the ski team and is happening with the ski team. I just think that is a really positive thing for our students, and getting the information out to the community that it's not doing someone a favor. It really, those students bring a lot to our kids. And in the one situation, brought the coach, right? The tennis merger.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
that was nice. So I just, it would be nice if we can get, this is a really great list of so many of them, that if we can get that information out somehow, would be nice.
And just to be clear, these aren't new, these are all the existing ones. We might have a new merger to discuss later on.
Yeah, before they came through one at a time, so this,
Yeah.
I would prefer they would come through one at a time,
Yeah.
so that I don't have to like be like the jerk on the board that's like, he's voted against the mergers. It's like, well, there's only one that I'm really passionate against, so if you lump them all together.
Gotcha. It's okay.
it's okay to vote no. If there's nothing else I can, in the last meeting, if there's nothing else I can leave you with, it's okay to vote no.
Okay.
So, thank you for that opportunity.
Do you foresee your boys hockey merging with Saranac Lake anytime in the near future?
Yeah, I do, probably year after next.
Okay.
That should be interesting from a cultural standpoint.
Absolutely.
All right, Liam, we need you to vote.
Okay. Oh yeah, so why not?
All right, thank you. Motion carries 6-4-1 against. The final action item of tonight is the nomination of NISBA Area 6 Director. Is there a motion to nominate Wayne Rogers as our Area 6 NISBA Director?
Yes.
Thank you, Patty. Is there a second?
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Wayne started in this position maybe our first year on the board, first or second year? Second year, and he's been a real positive representative for us. He's somebody that I've really enjoyed getting to know and appreciate his passion for public schools.
Yeah,
Especially.
it's been great.
Yeah. So, please vote. Motion carries 7-4-0 against. In special ed, placements we approved in the consent agenda, but are there any questions on the proposed placements found in the July 3rd packet?
Yes.
Does it require having our the director come to the next meeting, or?
I think it's just to clarify, on page 38 of the 51,
Can you pull that up?
both schools are listed, the elementary school and the middle high school. So how is the student split between the two?
What page was it again?
38.
38.
Oh, right, okay. All right. It's gonna take me a minute, yeah.
That's okay.
38. How do you know which one's page 38?
Yeah,
It says that, right?
where?
Bring your cursor to the top of the page, it'll tell you the page you're on.
It's usually it shows up.
It's not on mine.
I can do that.
But the dates.
If you could show me a.
Yeah, I'll bring
the
this.
dates
answer.
end
I
in
got it.
August.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
That would have been exciting if you threw it up there.
September to the following year. Changes
I
with
should
the
probably
school.
check with him first
Yeah,
next
they
year.
probably go to the, they moved from.
That's pretty
They
small.
moved
right?
From
You can make
One
it.
goal.
So it'd be like summer school and then
Right.
on into middle school. Okay.
You're going to be, what needs to be looked at? No, 917, no, this is going to.
So Roger, when we look at the dates, it looks like the student is in like summer school and then moves into middle school.
Yeah,
So, right, so anytime you have students who are making a transition between grade levels, you're gonna see that, now I know you, and I know you look very closely at these, so I'm speaking broadly without knowing exactly what you're looking at. But, so you're gonna see this year, and you're gonna see next year, summer, and you're gonna see next year, regular school year, right? So when they're doing a transition, their summer will often be at the current school, and then their next year would be at the school they're transitioning to.
Okay.
Does that make sense for this person for you?
Yeah, when I look at the dates, it's like summer school and then.
Yes, that's right. So our summer school, so this is kind of, it's a good question to bring up, because, you know, we can read all these, you know, abbreviations and acronyms and things, and, you know, sometimes it's hard to remember, but we have a extended school year program. And the extended school year program, that's a title that special ed gives it. For us is it's a summer school at the elementary school that is staffed by our special ed staff and attended by our special education students. So there's even times when, and I just said, you know, when somebody's transitioning, like, you know, 5th to 6th, that kind of thing, but there's even times when a student who's older but needs the kind of services that we could provide in extended school year, and we can do it at the elementary school. We'll sometimes serve them at the elementary school, even though they're already in the middle and high school, because that's where the teachers are. And sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't. It really depends on the situation. So sometimes we'll put an extended school year program for 1 or 2 students usually over at the middle and high school. But typically, extended school year is mostly attended by elementary school students, so it's always located in the elementary school. And I think for the student you're looking at, it's a summer versus fall kind of thing.
Okay.
Come official again, Holly. Old agenda topics, none listed. New agenda topics. Is there any that you're going to add?
I don't know if we need it as an agenda topic, but it would be, I just would like a reminder to get that safety, you know, our capital improvement document up under the safety, you know, classification, so people can refer to it easily, because it isn't easy to find right now. That's something that does answer those kinds of questions pretty thoroughly.
Yep. There is nothing else. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Yes.
Patty,
You're welcome.
can I do the second?
Yeah.
We're signing out.
Yep.
You can drop the mic.
We can all vote.
Oh, you have to vote for me. I really signed out.
Mine's not. Mine didn't come out. So is there anybody opposed?
No.
All right, motion carries
Anyone
7-4-0.
opposed doesn't get Karen's food.
Yeah.
Bypass.
You can't actually go yet, right?
Right.
No, I'm starving, she told me.